Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, The Betrayal. Jordan Gamble sat in the mahogany-paneled courtroom, his weathered hands clenched into fists as he watched his 22-year-old son, Kevin, standing before the bench. His boy, looked so small in that orange jumpsuit, shoulders trembling as Judge Harold Wyatt prepared to deliver the sentence. Jordan had built his reputation as one of Chicago's most feared private investigators over 25 years. He tracked down missing persons, exposed cheating spouses, and gathered evidence that had destroyed careers and lives. But none of that mattered now. His son had been framed for armed robbery, and despite Jordan's best efforts to prove Kevin's innocence, the evidence seemed ironclad. Kevin Gamble, Judge Wyatt's voice boomed through the courtroom. The prosecution has painted you as a repeat offender despite this being your first conviction. Taking into account the alleged gang connections and the severity of crime, Jordan's jaw tightened. There were no gang connections. Kevin worked at a garage and went to community college. The prosecutor, Edgar Rush, had somehow manufactured evidence that made his clean-cut son look like a hardened criminal. I hereby sentence you to 8 years in state penitentiary. The gavel came down like a gunshot. 8 years. Jordan felt his world tilt. The standard sentence for first-time armed robbery was 3 to 4 years. His father-in-law, his own wife's father, had just doubled his grandson's sentence. Jordan turned to his wife, Maxine, expecting to see the same shock and outrage he felt. Instead, her face was cold, almost satisfied. When she noticed him looking, she leaned close and whispered, "He deserves a death penalty for what he's put this family through." The words hit Jordan like ice water. His wife of 26 years, the mother of his child, had just wished death upon their son. Jordan said nothing, but something fundamental shifted inside him. The man who had spent decades reading people, catching lies, and uncovering betrayals suddenly realized he'd been blind to the greatest deception of all. As Kevin was led away in shackles, casting one desperate look back at his father, Jordan made his first mental note: find out why Harold Wyatt really doubled the sentence, and find out why his own wife seemed pleased about it. The courtroom began to empty, but Jordan remained seated, his mind already working. 25 years of investigation had taught him that when something didn't make sense, it was because you didn't have all the pieces. The way Edgar Rush had avoided his eyes during the trial. The way Maxine had been working late more often in recent months. The way Judge Wyatt had seemed almost reluctant to look at Kevin during sentencing. As Jordan finally stood to leave, he caught sight of Edgar Rush and Maxine talking in hushed tones near the prosecutor's table. Rush placed his hand briefly on her lower back, a gesture too intimate for mere acquaintances. In that moment, Jordan understood. His wife wasn't just betraying their son. She was betraying him. The private investigator in Jordan kicked into overdrive. Rule 1, gather intelligence before acting. Rule 2, your enemy doesn't know they're your enemy until it's too late. Rule 3, when you strike, you destroy everything. That night, Jordan sat in his home office, staring at photos of his family on the desk. Kevin's graduation photo, their wedding picture, Maxine's last birthday. All lies, he realized. How long had she been sleeping with the prosecutor? How long had she been working with her father to destroy Kevin's life? He opened his laptop and began typing. If Maxine thought she could manipulate the system against his son, she was about to learn what happened when you betrayed Jordan Gamble. Chapter 2, The Investigation. 2 weeks after Kevin's sentencing, Jordan sat in his car outside the downtown law offices where Edgar Rush worked. At 52, Jordan had the patience of a predator and the instincts of a man who'd survived Chicago's mean streets before building his investigation business. He'd been watching Rush for 3 days, learning his patterns, documenting his movements. Rush was 41, divorced, and apparently had a taste for married women. Jordan had already confirmed what he suspected. Edgar and Maxine had been meeting at the Riverside Hotel every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 4 months. But Jordan needed more than adultery. He needed to understand the full scope of their betrayal. His phone buzzed with a text from Maxine. "Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. Jordan smiled coldly. She was probably with Rush right now, celebrating their victory over Kevin. His son was already in Stateville Correctional Center, where Jordan's contacts told him the boy was struggling but surviving. Kevin still maintained his innocence, still believed his father would find a way to clear his name. Jordan planned to do exactly that, and so much more. He'd spent his career building a network of contacts throughout Chicago's legal system, law enforcement, and criminal underworld. Judges who owed him favors, cops who'd used his services, criminals who respected his word. It was time to call in every debt. His first stop was Alice Johns, a defense attorney who specialized in appeals. Alice was one of the few lawyers in Chicago who wasn't afraid to take on corrupt prosecutors and judges. She was also someone Jordan had helped out of a bind years ago when her ex-husband had tried to frame her for embezzlement. "Jordan," Alice said, settling into her office chair across from him. "I heard about Kevin. I'm sorry. 8 years seems excessive." It was more than excessive. It was personal. Jordan slid a manila folder across her desk. "I need you to look into something." Alice opened the folder, revealing photos of Edgar Rush and Maxine together, bank records showing unusual deposits in Maxine's account, and a detailed timeline of meetings between Rush and Judge Wyatt. "How did you get bank records?" Alice asked. "You don't want to know." Jordan's voice was flat. "What I want to know is whether you can build a case for prosecutorial misconduct and judicial bias." Alice studied the documents. "This is extensive. But Jordan, even if we can prove an affair and some coordination, overturning Kevin's conviction won't be easy. We need to show they deliberately manufactured evidence or withheld exculpatory evidence. Then that's what we'll find." Jordan leaned forward. "Alice, my son is innocent. My wife and her lover put him in prison to clear the way for their affair and probably to get their hands on my assets. My father-in-law doubled the sentence because Edgar Rush asked him to. I'm going to prove all of it." Alice was quiet for a long moment. "What do you need from me?" "File the appeal. Start making noise about prosecutorial misconduct. I want Edgar Rush looking over his shoulder. And I want you to be ready with paperwork for Kevin's next hearing." After leaving Alice's office, Jordan drove to his next appointment. Buddy Herman ran a security company that specialized in surveillance equipment and information acquisition. Buddy was an ex-cop who'd been forced out for being too aggressive, but he was loyal to the people who treated him right. "Jay Gamble," Buddy said, using Jordan's old street nickname. "Heard your boy got railroaded. What do you need?" "I need Edgar Rush's office bugged. His home, his car, everything." Buddy nodded. "Illegal as hell, but doable. What about your wife?" "Her too. I want to know every conversation, every meeting, every plan they have. This is going to be expensive." Jordan pulled out an envelope thick with cash. "This is just a down payment. I want them to hang themselves with their own words." That evening, Jordan returned home to find Maxine cooking dinner as if nothing had happened. She'd been doing this for weeks, playing the grieving mother while secretly celebrating their son's imprisonment. "How was work today?" she asked, not looking up from a stove. "Productive," Jordan replied. "I'm working on some new cases." Maxine glanced at him. "Nothing that will interfere with Kevin's situation, I hope. Harold says it's best if we don't make waves. Kevin needs to accept responsibility for his actions." Jordan studied his wife's face. Even now, she was lying to him. "Of course not. I just want what's best for our son." Maxine smiled, apparently satisfied. "Good. Edgar stopped by today, by the way. He wanted to check on how we're doing." That was thoughtful of him. "Yes, he's very caring." Jordan excused himself and went to his office. He had calls to make and plans to finalize. Maxine and Edgar thought they were so clever, using the legal system to destroy his family. They had no idea they'd just declared war on someone who'd spent 25 years learning how to destroy people professionally. He opened his laptop and began typing notes. Subject: complete destruction of Edgar Rush and Maxine Gamble. Timeline: for weeks maximum. Methods: all necessary. The hunt was about to begin. Chapter 3: the setup. 3 weeks into his investigation, Jordan had everything he needed to begin phase 1 of his plan. Buddy Herman's surveillance equipment had captured hours of incriminating conversations between Maxine and Edgar Rush. The audio quality was crystal clear as Jordan played back their most damning exchange from the previous Tuesday. "Harold came through for us," Edgar's voice said through the speakers. 8 years. The kid won't be a problem anymore. "And Jordan still doesn't suspect anything," Maxine replied. "He's so focused on trying to prove Kevin's innocence. He can't see what's right in front of him. Once we get him to sign the divorce papers, half his assets become yours. Then we can start our new life together. What about the insurance policy? What about it? Jordan's worth more dead than alive, Edgar. Just saying." Jordan had listened to that conversation a dozen times, each replay strengthening his resolve. His wife wasn't just planning to divorce him. She was considering having him killed. And Edgar Rush, the prosecutor who'd railroaded his son, was in on everything. But Jordan had more than just audio recordings. Through his network of contacts, he discovered that Edgar Rush had a gambling problem. The prosecutor owed serious money to some very serious people, specifically Melvin Combs, who ran high-stakes poker games for Chicago's political elite. Edgar had been using his position to feed information to certain defense attorneys in exchange for cash, trying to pay off his debts. Even better, Judge Harold Wyatt had his own secrets. Jordan's investigation revealed that the judge had been taking bribes for lighter sentences in exchange for contributions to his wife's charity, the charity that Maxine helped run. The family connection ran deeper than anyone realized. Jordan was putting together a plan that would destroy all three of them simultaneously when his phone rang. The caller ID showed Kevin's correctional facility. "Dad." Kevin's voice was strained, exhausted. "Kevin, how are you holding up?" "It's hard in here, Dad, but I'm managing. Some of the guys are looking out for me because they know you. Dad, I need you to know I didn't do what they said I did. I was at work when that robbery happened. My boss will vouch for me." "I know, son. I've always known, and I'm going to get you out of there. The appeals process could take years." "It won't take years." Jordan's voice was steel. "Kevin, there's going to be another hearing soon. When it happens, I need you to trust me completely. No matter what you see or hear, remember that your father loves you and will never let anyone hurt you." After hanging up, Jordan made his next call to Alice Johns. "Alice, I need you to request an emergency hearing. File a motion claiming new evidence of prosecutorial misconduct and judicial bias." "Jordan, we've been through this. We need more than. We have more. Much more. Just file the motion and be ready. The hearing is going to be very interesting." Jordan's final call was to Cecil Montgomery, a bail bondsman who owed Jordan several favors. Cecil also had connections to some of Chicago's more entrepreneurial citizens. "Cecil, I need a favor. A big one." "Name it, Jordan." "You saved my daughter's life when you found her after she was kidnapped. I owe you everything. I need you to collect a debt from Edgar Rush. He owes Melvin Combs about $200,000 from poker games. I want you to buy that debt and then apply pressure. Serious pressure. You want him hurt? Not yet. I want him desperate. Scared. Making bad decisions. Consider it done." The pieces were falling into place. Jordan had learned long ago that the key to destroying your enemies was to make them destroy themselves. Edgar Rush was already corrupt. Jordan just needed to expose that corruption at exactly the right moment. Judge Wyatt was already taking bribes. Jordan just needed to prove it. And Maxine was already planning Jordan's death. She just needed to be caught in the act. 2 days later, Jordan received word that the emergency hearing had been scheduled. Edgar Rush would be in court, defending his prosecution of Kevin. Judge Harold Wyatt would be presiding, trying to maintain the facade of his doubled sentence. And Maxine would be there, playing the supportive wife, while secretly hoping her son stayed buried in prison. Jordan spent the evening before the hearing preparing the sealed envelope that would change everything. Inside were bank records showing the bribes to Judge Wyatt's wife's charity, audio recordings of Edgar and Maxine planning Jordan's death, photos of Edgar's gambling debts and the money he'd taken from defense attorneys, and a detailed timeline showing how they'd all worked together to frame Kevin. But the most damaging evidence was a video recording from the night of the robbery. Jordan had finally tracked down the convenience store's security footage that the police had somehow lost. The video clearly showed Kevin at his job across town when the robbery occurred. It also showed the actual perpetrators, two men Jordan recognized as associates of Melvin Combs. The same Melvin Combs who now owned Edgar Rush's gambling debts. Jordan smiled as he sealed the envelope. Tomorrow, his enemies would learn what happened when they betrayed the wrong man's family. And Kevin would finally come home. Chapter 4. The Revelation. The emergency hearing was packed. Jordan sat in the gallery, watching as Edgar Rush took his place at the prosecutor's table, looking haggard and nervous. The man had clearly been under pressure. Cecil Montgomery had done his job well. Maxine sat beside Jordan, playing the role of concerned mother, occasionally dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Judge Harold Wyatt entered looking confident, perhaps even smug. He'd doubled Kevin's sentence and gotten away with it. In his mind, the case was closed. Alice Johns stood to address the court. Your Honor, we have new evidence that calls into question the entire prosecution of Kevin Gamble. Evidence that suggests prosecutorial misconduct, witness tampering, and judicial bias. Edgar Rush shot to his feet. Your Honor, this is clearly a desperate attempt to— Mr. Rush, Alice interrupted, you'll have your chance to respond. But first, I think the court needs to see what we've discovered. Jordan stood and walked toward the front of the courtroom. Every eye followed him as he approached Alice and handed her the sealed envelope. Edgar Rush's face went pale. Judge Wyatt's confident expression began to crack. Mr. Gamble, Judge Wyatt said, his voice strained, you're not an attorney. You can't. I'm a licensed private investigator providing evidence to counsel, Jordan replied calmly. Perfectly legal, Your Honor. Alice opened the envelope and began reading. Her eyes widened as she scanned the documents. Behind him, Jordan heard Maxine's sharp intake of breath. She was smart enough to know this wasn't going according to plan. Your Honor, Alice said, I need to enter several pieces of evidence into the record. First, bank records showing payments from various defense attorneys to prosecutor Edgar Rush in exchange for information about their clients' cases. Edgar Rush looked like he might be sick. Your Honor, this is preposterous. These records are obviously fabricated. Second, Alice continued, audio recordings of conversations between Mr. Rush and Mrs. Maxine Gamble, discussing how they conspired to frame Kevin Gamble in order to clear the way for their adulterous affair. Maxine gasped behind Jordan. He turned to look at her and smiled coldly. The tears in her eyes weren't fake anymore. Third, evidence of payments to Mrs. Dorothy Wyatt's charity in exchange for favorable sentences from Judge Harold Wyatt. Judge Wyatt's face had gone completely white. This hearing is out of order. I'm declaring a recess. Fourth, Alice's voice rose to be heard over the judge's protests. Security footage from the night of the alleged robbery, clearly showing Kevin Gamble at his workplace across town when the crime occurred. The courtroom erupted. Reporters began frantically taking notes. Edgar Rush looked around desperately, as if seeking an escape route. Judge Wyatt was banging his gavel, demanding order. But Jordan wasn't finished. He'd spent 3 weeks planning this moment, and he wanted everyone to understand the full scope of the betrayal. Alice, he said, his voice carrying clearly through the chaos, play the recording from last Tuesday. Alice connected her phone to the courtroom's audio system. Suddenly, Maxine's voice filled the room. Jordan's worth more dead than alive. Edgar. Just saying. Edgar's voice followed. Once we get him to sign the divorce papers, half his assets become yours. Then we can start our new life together. The courtroom fell silent. Jordan turned to face his wife, who was now openly sobbing. 26 years of marriage, Maxine, and you were planning to have me killed. Jordan, I can explain. No need. Jordan's voice was ice. I heard everything. Every conversation. Every plan. Every lie. Judge Wyatt had abandoned his gavel and was trying to leave the bench, but 2 U.S. Marshals who'd been waiting in the back of the courtroom moved to block his path. Alice had contacted the FBI before the hearing. The evidence Jordan had gathered implicated federal crimes. Your Honor, Alice said formally, I move for the immediate release of Kevin Gamble and the dismissal of all charges. I also request that this court be made aware that the FBI has been investigating corruption in this jurisdiction for several months. As if on cue, FBI agents enter the courtroom. Edgar Rush bolted for the side door, but found his path blocked by Cecil Montgomery and two very large men who worked for Melvin Combs. The bail bondsman had been waiting for exactly this moment. "Mr. Rush," one of the FBI agents called out, "we need to speak with you about your gambling debts and how you've been paying them off with information from the prosecutor's office." Edgar's shoulders slumped in defeat. He was trapped between federal investigators and angry criminals. There was nowhere to run. Judge Wyatt was already being escorted out in handcuffs, his judicial immunity worthless against the evidence of bribery and corruption. As he passed Jordan, he whispered, "You have no idea what you've done. This goes deeper than you think." Jordan smiled. "I know exactly how deep it goes, Harold, and I know exactly who else is involved." Maxine stood shakily, her face streaked with tears and makeup. "Jordan, please. We can work this out. I made mistakes, but—" "The only mistake you made," Jordan said quietly, "was thinking you could betray my son and live to enjoy it. You're done, Maxine. Your lover is done. Your father is done. And in about 20 minutes, Kevin is going to walk out of prison a free man." As FBI agents moved to arrest Maxine for conspiracy to commit murder, she looked at Jordan one last time. "I loved you once." "No," Jordan replied. "You loved what I could give you. You never loved me, and you sure as hell never loved our son." The courtroom was clearing out as various law enforcement agencies took custody of their respective prisoners. Alice approached Jordan with a smile. "Kevin should be released within the hour." "You did it, Jordan. Phase 1 is complete," Jordan corrected. "But this isn't over. Judge Wyatt was right. This does go deeper, and I'm going to root out every bit of corruption that tried to destroy my family." Jordan walked out of the courthouse a free man whose son would soon be equally free. But he wasn't satisfied yet. Destroying Edgar Rush, Maxine, and Judge Wyatt was just the beginning. There were others involved in the conspiracy against Kevin, and Jordan intended to find them all. After all, he was a man who never forgave and never forgot. And he was just getting started. Chapter 5, The Network. Kevin Gamble walked out of Stateville Correctional Center that afternoon, squinting in the sunlight after 3 weeks of imprisonment. Jordan was waiting by his car, and for the first time in months, he smiled genuinely as his son ran toward him. "Dad, I can't believe it's over," Kevin said, embracing his father. "It's not over," Jordan replied, his voice gentle but firm. "Not yet. We need to talk." During the drive back to Chicago, Jordan explained everything to Kevin. The affair between Maxine and Edgar Rush. The conspiracy with Judge Wyatt. The plan to kill Jordan and steal his assets. Kevin listened in stunned silence as his father described how his own mother had been willing to sacrifice him to clear the way for her new life. "She really wanted me to stay in prison?" Kevin asked, his voice hollow. "Son, she suggested you deserve the death penalty. Your own mother." Jordan's knuckles were white as he gripped the steering wheel. But that's not the worst of it. This conspiracy goes beyond just the three of them. Jordan had spent the last 24 hours following up on Judge Wyatt's parting words. His investigation had revealed a network of corruption that ran through multiple law enforcement agencies, the prosecutor's office, and even city government. Edgar Rush hadn't been working alone. He'd been part of a system that was selling justice to the highest bidder. Who else was involved? Kevin asked. At least 6 other prosecutors, 3 judges, 2 police chiefs, and half the city council. They've been running a protection racket disguised as law enforcement. Rich criminals pay for light sentences or drop charges. Poor criminals get railroaded to maintain their conviction statistics. Jordan pulled into the parking lot of a diner outside the city. "We're meeting someone here. Someone who's going to help us take down the entire network." Inside the diner, Ismail Graves was waiting in a corner booth. Graves was a former federal prosecutor who'd been forced out when he'd gotten too close to exposing the corruption Jordan had just uncovered. He'd been working as a private attorney for the past 2 years, building his own case against the network. "Jordan," Graves said, standing to shake hands. "I saw the news about the hearing. Outstanding work. Ismail, this is my son Kevin. Kevin, Ismail has been tracking the same corruption network that framed you." As they sat down, Graves pulled out a thick folder. Edgar Rush was small time compared to what's really going on. The network has been operating for at least 5 years. They've fixed hundreds of cases, stolen millions in evidence money, and probably gotten dozens of innocent people convicted. How many people are we talking about? Jordan asked. At least 30 city and county officials. Maybe more. They call themselves the Syndicate, and they meet monthly to divide up territories and coordinate their activities. Kevin leaned forward. Are you saying there are other innocent people in prison because of these people? Dozens of them, Graves confirmed. Young men mostly, from poor families who couldn't afford real legal defense. They needed scapegoats to maintain their conviction rates, while they let the real criminals walk free. Jordan felt his anger building again. It wasn't enough that they destroyed his family. They've been destroying other families for years. What do you need from me? Your evidence was crucial, but we need more. The FBI investigation you triggered is going to force them underground. We need to catch them before they destroy evidence and disappear. Graves explained that the syndicate was planning an emergency meeting that weekend to discuss damage control. Through his contacts, he learned they were planning to eliminate anyone who could testify against them, including some of their own members who might turn state's evidence. They're going to kill their own people? Kevin asked. These aren't good people, son, Jordan replied. When cornered animals get desperate, they eat their young. Graves slid a photograph across the table. It showed a warehouse on the south side of Chicago. They're meeting here Saturday night. If we can get recordings of that meeting, we'll have enough to bring down the entire network. That's FBI territory, Jordan pointed out. The FBI has been investigating for months and gotten nowhere. These people are too smart, too careful. But you've already proven you can outthink them. Jordan studied the photograph. The warehouse was in a rough neighborhood, surrounded by empty lots and abandoned buildings. It would be heavily guarded, and the people inside would be armed and desperate. I'll need help, he said finally. I know some people, Graves replied. Ex-military, ex-law enforcement. People who've been screwed over by this same network. This is dangerous, Dad, Kevin said. These people already tried to destroy our family. If they find out you're coming after them. Jordan looked at his son. Kevin, your mother betrayed us both. She was willing to let you rot in prison and have me killed. These people have been destroying innocent families for years. If we don't stop them, they'll just start over somewhere else. Kevin was quiet for a moment, then nodded. What do you need me to do? I need you to stay safe. Go stay with your Uncle Rick in Wisconsin until this is over. Don't contact anyone. Don't trust anyone. Can you do that? Dad, I want to help. You help by staying alive and safe. These people have already proven they'll kill to protect their secrets. After Kevin left for Wisconsin, Jordan spent the next 2 days planning the most dangerous operation of his career. Graves had recruited 4 men to help. Jim Eaton and Israel Hill, both former military police who'd been framed and drummed out of the service by corrupt officers. Derek Stratton, an ex-Chicago cop who'd been fired for refusing to take bribes. And Joshua Rich, a private security contractor who specialized in surveillance. The plan was simple but risky. They would infiltrate the warehouse meeting, record everything, and get the evidence to the FBI before the syndicate could react. Jordan would lead the team, using his knowledge of surveillance and investigation to coordinate the operation. But Jordan had a secondary plan he didn't share with Graves or the others. He'd spent 25 years learning that sometimes the law wasn't enough. Sometimes, when people betrayed everything good and decent, they needed to face consequences that went beyond prison time. The syndicate had destroyed his family, railroaded his son, and corrupted everything they touched. Saturday night, Jordan intended to make sure they never hurt another innocent family again. And if that required going beyond the law he'd served most of his life, so be it. Some betrayals demanded permanent solutions. Chapter 6. The Trap. Saturday night came with a cold October rain that turned the streets around the warehouse district into rivers of oil and grime. Jordan sat in a stolen van with his team, watching the warehouse through night vision scopes as members of the syndicate arrived for their emergency meeting. Counts so far, Jordan asked quietly. 15 vehicles, probably 30 to 40 people inside, Jim Eaton reported. Security is heavy. They've got sentries posted at every entrance. Jordan had spent 2 days studying the warehouse's layout and the backgrounds of everyone expected to attend. Besides Edgar Rush, who was already in federal custody, Judge Harold Wyatt, also arrested, and several other lower-level conspirators, the meeting would include the real power players: District Attorney Jesse Flynn, Police Chief Robert Nelson, and City Councilman Cecil Montgomery. What the syndicate didn't know was that Jordan had inside information about their plans. Through a contact in the mayor's office, someone who'd grown tired of the corruption, Jordan knew they were planning to eliminate several witnesses and destroy evidence. They were also discussing permanently removing Jordan himself as a threat. "They know I'm coming," Jordan said, checking his recording equipment one final time. "This whole meeting might be a trap." "Then why are we here?" Derek Stratton asked. "Because sometimes you have to walk into the trap to spring it properly." Jordan's real plan was more complex than simple surveillance. He'd spent the last 48 hours setting up his own trap, one that would catch the syndicate in the act of planning murders, while simultaneously exposing the full scope of their corruption to the public. Through his network of contacts, Jordan had arranged for local news crews to be accidentally in the area when the raid went down. He'd also ensured that several honest FBI agents not compromised by the syndicate, would be standing by to make arrests. But first, he needed to get inside and document their crimes. "Israel, you're with me. Jim and Derek, maintain perimeter watch. Joshua, monitor police frequencies. If this goes wrong, we need to know if corrupt cops are coming to help them." Jordan and Israel Hill moved through the rain toward the warehouse's north entrance. Israel was a former Army Ranger who'd been discharged under false accusations of assault, accusations that Jordan's investigation had proven were fabricated by the same network they were now infiltrating. The sentries were overconfident, relying on the warehouse's isolated location rather than proper security protocols. Jordan and Israel neutralized 2 guards silently, using techniques they'd both learned in very different contexts. The guards would wake up with headaches, but nothing worse. Inside the warehouse, Jordan could hear voices echoing from the main floor. He and Israel made their way to an office overlooking the meeting area, where they had a clear view and audio recording range. Below them, 37 members of the syndicate sat around a collection of tables, looking like a board meeting from hell. District Attorney Jesse Flynn was standing at the front, addressing the group. "The Rush situation has exposed us," Flynn was saying. "The FBI is already moving on the judges and prosecutors we can't trust to keep quiet. We need to accelerate our contingency plans." Police Chief Robert Nelson stood up. "What about Jordan Gamble? He's the one who brought this all down. If we don't deal with him, he'll keep digging until he exposes everyone." "Gamble is a problem that needs a permanent solution," Flynn agreed. "Along with his son and that federal prosecutor Graves, who's been sniffing around." Jordan continued recording as they discussed specific plans to murder him, Kevin, and Ismail Graves. They talked about making it look like a robbery gone wrong, or perhaps a car accident. These weren't abstract criminal conspiracies. They were detailed murder plots against specific individuals. But Jordan wasn't just there to record. He was there to end this. He activated a signal device that sent a message to Joshua Rich, Phase 2. Suddenly, the warehouse's main lights went out, replaced by emergency lighting that cast eerie shadows throughout the building. At the same time, Jordan's voice echoed through the warehouse's PA system. He'd hacked into their communications earlier. "Ladies and gentlemen of the syndicate," Jordan's voice boomed through the speakers. "This is Jordan Gamble. You've been discussing my murder for the last 10 minutes. I thought you should know I've been recording every word." Chaos erupted below. People were shouting, drawing weapons, running for exits. But Jordan had planned for this too. "You might want to look outside before you try to leave," Jordan continued through the PA. "The FBI has the building surrounded. Local news crews are filming everything. And I've just transmitted recordings of your murder conspiracy to every major news outlet in Chicago." Through the office window, Jordan could see the panic on Flynn's face as she realized the scope of their exposure. This wasn't just about prosecution anymore. It was about public humiliation and the complete destruction of their network. But several members of the syndicate weren't going down quietly. Jordan saw weapons being drawn, heard orders being shouted to find him and kill him. Israel, Jordan said quietly, time to go. They're going to come looking for us, and they're not planning to arrest us. As they moved toward their exit route, Jordan activated one more device. Throughout the warehouse, speakers began playing recordings of the syndicate's own conversations over the past year. Discussions of bribes, fixed cases, and destroyed evidence. Every crime they committed was being broadcast to the FBI agents and news crews outside. The war wasn't over yet, but the syndicate was about to learn what happened when they declared war on the wrong man's family. Chapter 7. The Hunt. Jordan and Israel fought their way through the warehouse as syndicate members systematically searched for them. The emergency lighting created a maze of shadows and confusion, but Jordan had studied the building's layout obsessively. He knew every exit, every hiding spot, every potential advantage. Movement, second floor, Israel whispered, pointing to a catwalk above them. Jordan looked up to see Robert Nelson and two armed men moving along the metal walkway. The police chief had his service weapon drawn and was directing his men with hand signals. These weren't arrests. They were executions. Nelson, Jordan called out, his voice echoing through the warehouse. Funny how the chief of police becomes a murderer when his corruption gets exposed. Nelson spun toward the sound, firing 3 shots that sparked off metal support beams near Jordan's position. Gamble, you should have minded your own business. My son was my business. Jordan replied, moving to a new position. My family was my business. And every innocent person you've railroaded was my business. Outside, Jordan could hear the sounds of FBI agents moving into position. But inside the warehouse, the syndicate had decided to make their last stand. If they were going down, they intended to take Jordan with them. District Attorney Jesse Flynn appeared from behind a stack of shipping containers, flanked by 3 men Jordan recognized as corrupt detectives from his central district. Mr. Gamble, she called out, you've caused us considerable inconvenience. Perhaps we can work out an arrangement. The only arrangement I'm interested in, Jordan replied, is watching you all go to prison for the rest of your lives. Flynn smiled coldly. I don't think that's going to happen. You see, we have your son. Jordan felt ice water in his veins. Kevin is in Wisconsin. Kevin was in Wisconsin. We picked him up this morning. He's in a secure location, and his continued health depends on your cooperation. Jordan's mind raced. If they really had Kevin, everything changed. His son's safety was more important than justice, more important than revenge, more important than anything else in the world. What do you want? Jordan asked. All your evidence. Every recording, every document, every piece of information you've gathered about our organization. In exchange, your son lives and you both disappear. Forever. Jordan was quiet for a long moment, appearing to consider the offer. But his silence wasn't hesitation. It was calculation. He was running through contingency plans he'd hoped never to use. How do I know you have him? Jordan asked. Flynn held up a cell phone and played a brief audio clip. Kevin's voice saying, Dad, they have me. Don't trust them. They're going to kill us both no matter what you. The recording cut off. Convince me you'll honor the deal, Jordan said. You're not in a position to negotiate, Mr. Gamble. You have 30 seconds to decide. What Flynn didn't know was that Jordan had been in contact with Kevin every few hours since he'd left for Wisconsin. Kevin's uncle, Rick Willis, was an ex-Marine who'd taught Jordan everything he knew about tactical planning. If the syndicate really had Kevin, Rick would have already contacted Jordan, which meant they were bluffing. Counter-offer, Jordan said, his voice carrying clearly through the warehouse. You all surrender to the FBI agents outside, and I don't activate the device that will bring this entire building down on top of us. Flynn laughed. You're bluffing. Am I? Jordan pulled out a remote detonator that Israel had helped him prepare earlier. I've spent 3 days placing explosives throughout this building's support structure. If I press this button, everyone inside dies, including me. The warehouse fell silent except for the sound of rain on the metal roof. You wouldn't, Nelson said from the catwalk above. You're not a killer. I'm a father whose son was betrayed by his own mother and railroaded by corrupt prosecutors, Jordan replied. I'm a husband whose wife planned to have him murdered. I'm a man who's discovered that the justice system he believed in is completely corrupted. What exactly do you think I wouldn't do? Through his earpiece, Jordan heard Joshua Rich's voice. FBI is breaching the building. News crews are getting everything on camera. Whatever you're going to do, you need to do it now. Jordan smiled grimly. Actually, Flynn, you're right about one thing. I am bluffing about the explosives. Relief began to show on Flynn's face. But I wasn't bluffing about this. Jordan pressed a different button on the device. Suddenly, every cell phone in the warehouse began receiving the same text message. GPS coordinates for a storage facility across town, along with a message, evidence of syndicate corruption stored here. Building rigged to explode if tampered with. Contact FBI. What did you do? Flynn demanded. Insurance, Jordan replied. Even if you kill me, even if you destroy all the evidence in this building, there are copies of everything stored in a location that only I know. And if anything happens to me or my son, that location gets revealed to every law enforcement agency in the country. FBI agents were now flooding into the warehouse, shouting commands and taking people into custody. Jordan could see the terror in Flynn's eyes as she realized their network was finished. But Jordan wasn't done yet. As FBI agents moved to arrest him along with everyone else, he handed over his recordings and walked toward the exit. He had one more betrayal to address, and this one was personal. Where are you going? Israel asked. To settle the last score, Jordan replied. Maxine is being held at the federal courthouse. It's time for her to understand what happens when you betray family. The war was almost over, but the most personal battle was yet to come. Chapter 8, The Reckoning. Jordan sat across from Maxine in the federal courthouse's secure conference room. She was still in orange jail clothes, her makeup long gone, her carefully maintained appearance destroyed by 3 days in custody. For 26 years, she'd been his wife. Now, she was just another criminal who betrayed his family. Jordan, she said, her voice small and broken, I know you must hate me. Hate? Jordan considered the word. No, Maxine. Hate implies you still matter to me emotionally. You're just a problem I need to solve permanently. Maxine's attorney, a public defender named Toby Maynard, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Mr. Gamble, perhaps we could discuss a plea arrangement. There is no plea arrangement, Jordan interrupted. Maxine is going to plead guilty to conspiracy to commit murder, conspiracy to frame an innocent person, and adultery that violated the terms of our prenuptial agreement. She's going to forfeit any claim to my assets, and she's going to publicly confess her role in Kevin's false imprisonment. And if I refuse? Maxine asked. Jordan smiled coldly. Then I released the video. What video? Jordan placed a tablet on the table and pressed play. The screen showed Maxine and Edgar Rush in what appeared to be Edgar's apartment. But the audio was what made Maxine's face go white. We need to make sure Kevin never gets out, Maxine's voice said clearly. Even if Jordan proves his innocence, Kevin knows too much about our plans. What are you suggesting? Edgar's voice replied. Prison accidents happen, especially to young men who might testify against prosecutors and judges. Jordan paused the video. You weren't just willing to let our son stay in prison, Maxine. You were planning to have him killed. Maxine's lawyer looked sick. Mrs. Gamble, you never told me about any of this. There's more, Jordan continued, advancing the video. Tell him about the insurance policies, Maxine. Tell him how you were going to collect on my death and start a new life with Edgar. The next segment showed Maxine discussing specific plans to poison Jordan's food or arrange for a car accident. She had researched his daily routines, his favorite restaurants, even his jogging routes. It wasn't a crime of passion. It was a calculated, methodical plan to murder her husband and son. Jesus Christ, Toby Maynard whispered. Mrs. Gamble, this video shows premeditation for 2 separate murders. If this goes to trial, you're looking at life in prison. Maxine was crying now, but Jordan felt no sympathy. 26 years of marriage, and you were planning to kill me and our son. Did you ever love either of us? I loved you once, Maxine said through her tears. But things changed. Edgar made me feel alive again. He understood me in ways you never did. Edgar understood your bank accounts, Jordan corrected. He understood that killing me would make you a wealthy widow. He understood that destroying Kevin would eliminate any witness to your conspiracy. Jordan leaned forward across the table. But here's what you never understood, Maxine. You married a man who spent 25 years learning how to destroy people who betray trust. You thought you were smarter than me, more clever than me. You thought you could manipulate the system and get away with it. He gestured toward the tablet, still showing their recorded conversation. How did that work out for you? Maxine looked at her lawyer desperately. What are my options? Toby Maynard reviewed his notes. If you plead guilty to all charges and cooperate fully with Mr. Gamble's conditions, you might avoid the death penalty. But you're still looking at life in prison without parole. And if I don't cooperate? Jordan answered instead of the lawyer. Then this video gets released to every news outlet in Chicago. Your parents see it. Your sister sees it. Your former friends see it. Everyone knows that you planned to murder your own family for money. And then you still get life in prison. You want me to confess publicly? I want Kevin to hear from your own mouth that you betrayed him. I want him to understand that his mother chose a criminal over her own son. I want him to have closure. Jordan stood to leave. You have 24 hours to decide. After that, the video goes public regardless of your choice. As Jordan reached the door, Maxine called out to him. Jordan, wait. What about forgiveness? What about the family we built together? What about the good times we had? Jordan turned back to face her one last time. The family we built together was a lie. The good times were based on deception and forgiveness. He shook his head. I'm not a forgiving man, Maxine. I never have been. You knew that when you married me, and you knew that when you betrayed me. So this is it. 26 years means nothing. 26 years of lies means exactly what it should mean, Jordan replied. Nothing. Jordan left the courthouse and drove to the hospital where Kevin was recovering from his ordeal. His son had been found safe at his uncle's house. The syndicate's claim about kidnapping him had been another lie, another desperate attempt to manipulate the situation. How did it go with Mom? Kevin asked when Jordan entered his room. Your mother chose Edgar Rush over her family. She was planning to have us both killed. She's going to spend the rest of her life in prison. Kevin was quiet for a long moment. Do you think she ever really loved us? I think she loved what we represented to her, Jordan replied. Security, status, respectability. But when someone better came along, someone who could give her more money and excitement, she was willing to destroy us to get it. I keep thinking about what she said at the trial, that I deserve the death penalty. Jordan sat down beside his son's bed. Kevin, some people are incapable of real love. They can mimic it, perform it, but when tested, they choose themselves every time. Your mother is one of those people. What happens now? Now we rebuild. The house, our family, our trust in each other. And we never, ever forgive the people who tried to destroy us. Kevin nodded. I don't think I could forgive her anyway. Good, Jordan said. Because forgiveness is for people who deserve it, and betrayal of family is unforgivable. As Jordan prepared to leave the hospital, his phone rang. It was Alice Johns. Jordan, I have news. Maxine has agreed to plead guilty to all charges. She wants to make her public confession tomorrow. And the others? Edgar Rush is cooperating with federal prosecutors. Judge Wyatt is looking at 20 years minimum. The entire syndicate is being dismantled. You did it, Jordan. You brought them all down. Jordan smiled grimly. No, Alice. I didn't bring them down. They brought themselves down when they chose to betray innocent people. I just made sure they faced the consequences. Tomorrow, Maxine would confess her crimes publicly. The syndicate would be destroyed, and Kevin would finally have justice. But for Jordan, justice wasn't enough. He was a man who neither forgave nor forgot, and he still had one final score to settle. Chapter 9. No Forgiveness. 6 months later, Jordan stood in the cemetery as they lowered Edgar Rush's casket into the ground. Only a handful of people attended the funeral. Rush had died alone in federal prison, the victim of what authorities called a random assault by other inmates. Jordan knew better. In prison, corrupt prosecutors didn't last long, especially when certain people made sure the right inmates knew about Rush's crimes against children and families. Jordan hadn't directly ordered Edgar's death, but he hadn't prevented it either. Sometimes justice required patience, and sometimes it required allowing natural consequences to unfold. Kevin stood beside him, now 23 and finishing his degree in criminal justice. The young man had changed during his brief imprisonment and the months that followed. He'd grown harder, more focused, more like his father in ways that both pleased and concerned Jordan. "Do you think he suffered?" Kevin asked quietly. "I hope so," Jordan replied without emotion. "He destroyed innocent lives for money. He deserved to suffer." They drove from a cemetery to the federal courthouse, where Maxine was being transferred to her permanent prison assignment. Jordan had requested permission to see her one final time before she disappeared into the federal system forever. Maxine looked older, grayer, defeated in ways that went beyond physical appearance. The woman who had once commanded social circles and charity committees was now just another convicted felon facing life in prison. "Why did you come here?" she asked when Jordan entered the visiting room. "To make sure you understand something," Jordan replied, sitting across from her at the metal table. "Edgar Rush is dead, killed in prison 3 days ago, beaten to death by inmates who didn't appreciate his crimes against families." Maxine's face went pale. "You had him killed." "I didn't have to. Word gets around in prison about what people have done. Corrupt prosecutors who destroy children's lives don't last long." "Jordan, please. I know I hurt you. I know I hurt Kevin, but you didn't hurt us, Maxine. You tried to destroy us. There's a difference." Jordan leaned forward. "I want you to understand something very clearly. You will spend the rest of your life in prison. You will never see your son again. You will never see me again. Your parents have disowned you. Your sister has moved to California and changed her name. Everyone you ever cared about is gone. Jordan, I'm begging you. You're going to die alone in a cell, forgotten by everyone who ever mattered. And when you do die, no one will come to your funeral. No one will mourn you. No one will remember you as anything more than a woman who betrayed her own family for money." Maxine was sobbing now, but Jordan felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, no second thoughts about the path he'd chosen. "This is what happens when you betray family," Jordan continued. "This is what happens when you choose criminals over the people who love you. This is what happens when you cross a man who never forgives and never forgets." Jordan stood to leave. "Goodbye, Maxine. I hope you live a very long time, because every day you spend in that cell is a day you'll remember what you lost when you chose Edgar Rush over your family." As Jordan walked away, Maxine called after him. "What about Kevin? What about giving him a chance to say goodbye to his mother?" Jordan paused at the door, but didn't turn around. "Kevin doesn't have a mother anymore. His mother died the day she chose to betray him." Outside the courthouse, Kevin was waiting by the car. "How did it go?" "It's finished," Jordan said. "She's gone forever, and we never have to think about her again." They drove home to the new house Jordan had bought across town. A fresh start in a place untainted by memories of Maxine's betrayal. As they pulled into the driveway, Kevin asked the question that had been bothering him for months. "Dad, do you ever think about forgiveness? About letting go of anger?" Jordan considered the question seriously. "Kevin, forgiveness is a luxury for people who can afford it. It's for people whose enemies show remorse, who try to make amends, who deserve a second chance. And our enemies try to destroy us completely. They were willing to see you rot in prison forever. They were willing to have me murdered. They felt no remorse, showed no mercy, and would have done it all again if they'd gotten away with it." Jordan turned to face his son. "Forgiveness is for people who deserve it." Maxine and Edgar and the rest of them forfeited any right to forgiveness when they chose to betray family. Some lines, once crossed, can never be uncrossed. Kevin nodded slowly. "I don't think I could forgive her anyway." "Then you're learning," Jordan said with satisfaction. "You're learning that loyalty is everything, that trust once broken can never be repaired, and that some betrayals demand permanent consequences." That evening, Jordan sat in his new office, looking at photographs of Kevin's graduation from the police academy. His son had decided to become a detective, following in his father's footsteps in the pursuit of justice. But Kevin had learned lessons about justice that went beyond what they taught in textbooks. Jordan's phone rang. It was Alice Johns. Jordan, I want to let you know, Judge Wyatt died in prison today. Heart attack, they're saying. Natural causes? As natural as anything gets in federal prison when you're a corrupt judge who destroyed children's lives. Jordan smiled. Thank you for letting me know. After hanging up, Jordan made one final entry in the journal he'd been keeping throughout this ordeal. Harold Wyatt, deceased. Edgar Rush, deceased. Maxine Gamble, life sentence, no parole. The syndicate, dismantled. Justice served. Family protected. No forgiveness given to those who deserved none. Jordan closed the journal and locked it in his safe. The war was over. His enemies were dead or in prison forever. His son was safe and had learned the hard lessons about loyalty and betrayal that would serve him well in life. And Jordan Gamble remained exactly what he'd always been, a man who never forgave, never forgot, and never allowed betrayal to go unpunished. In the end, that's exactly the kind of man